That will not practice today is Mike Dana. He's got a pec strain, so we'll just see how he does this week as we go forward. Look forward to the challenge of playing the 49ers. Heck of a football team. Kyle does a great job with, with the team, and he and Chris have that offense rolling right now, and their defense is one of the top defenses in the NFL, with Nick heading up the defense and special teams. Brian does a great job there on special teams. So, listen, they're well coached. They've got good players. I think both teams kind of know each other, and it should just be a heck of a game. With that, time's yours.
Coach, what is it about the Niners' defense that makes them so difficult to prepare for?
Yeah, so they've got their defensive front. Starts with those guys, and then they've got an all-pro linebacker sitting right there. That's pretty good, along with their secondary. So they're well-rounded, but it starts with the defensive front. Those guys, they set the tempo for their defense.
Andy, what are your plans for Clyde now that he's on the active list?
Yeah, we'll just see how that goes, and how it all works in. We got to look at everything on that. So, special teams, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll just, but he's good to go to practice. He knows what he's doing. He's feeling great, which is the most important thing. So.
Do you anticipate that he would play?
We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
And is Super Bowl footage of any use at all at this stage, based on the timeline and things they're doing differently?
Yeah, I think both teams will look at that for sure. Yeah, you're going to look at everything. I mean, over the time that we've had against each other. I mean, along with the games we've already played and they've played. So you look at all of that.
Do you think there's any consciousness at all, the notion of a rematch, or not, this just another regular season game?
Yeah, I think that comes from you guys, and then, but I think it's two good teams playing each other for sure. I mean, that's how I look at it.
How was a bye week for you and your coaching staff?
Yeah, it was good. It was good to step back for a second. For the players in particular, they got quite a bit of time off, and coaches got a little bit of time off, and it was good for everybody there.
And you've been through this long enough to know, what are the benefits of having an early bye when compared to like one that's, say, closer to Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we've normally had them a little 9th week or plus, somewhere in that area. Our schedule is crazy enough where you're going to get some days off, and it's important that you take advantage of those days. So that's what I would tell you. So it was good to get this one, and then how we handle the rest of the schedule is the important part. And when we have time, make sure you take the time, and for recovery purposes.
Andy, what do you attribute to? You guys had a lot of success under center against the Saints. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, we've done a little bit more of that this year, and it's just, listen, it's one more thing that we like to use, and we're able to use it a little bit more. I think the running backs love that part, obviously, but it's a good changeup. Yeah.
When you were going back during the bye, how did you feel about some of the pass protection, and then particularly at the left side? Just how you guys made it a little bit better there?
Yeah, listen, we've got young guys playing the left tackle. I mean, that's not a secret, and so it's important that we just continue to progress there and get better. We know there are going to be some hiccups, and we just got to keep getting better and better as we go. That's the important thing, and the guys are working hard, and so that's kind of where we're at with that.
Will Wanya start this week?
Yeah, Wanya will start. Yeah.
Coach, Brock Purdy's obviously had a very fine career to start here, and wasn't drafted by anybody until the very last pick of the draft. And he's kind of proven it over time. What do you see from him as he's gone through here, getting a couple years into this thing, where it seems to not be dropping off?
No, I think he's a heck of a player. I remember the head coach at Iowa State saying this guy changed the program around. And when you make a statement like that, and he's a good football coach, when you make a statement like that, that's bold, and it's we all see why he said it. You know, he was right on with that. I mean, this kid's he's a heck of a football player.
What was just kind of your impression so far, just how much that JuJu has kind of been able to kind of pick up where he was, in 2022 when he was with you guys?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's a veteran. He works hard and he's smart. So I think all of those kind of go into that. And Pat has trust in him. So, and we as coaches have trust in him, and we've tried to put him in good positions for his strengths and try to utilize those. And that's, I think all of those things kind of add up to production. But the main thing is he's kept himself in great shape and he's smart. He knows how to play the game.
He said when he got here that he watched last year and saw Rashid doing a lot of the things that he had done the year before. Does that make him just a really good piece to have around when you do lose Rashid?
Yeah, you and I have talked about this, Matt, but the guy opposite Kels ends up being very important. That they know how to play the game and can kind of do similar things that Kels can do, and it's if you can get that, then you've got something going offensively that way. So he did that before. Pringle did that before him. We've had guys in those spots that could do that. So it's that's a positive thing. Anyways, JuJu's good with that, and yeah, they are similar things. They're doing similar things.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Okay, good.
Patrick, you're used to obviously playing in big games, but is there anything special about this one, given the recent history between these teams?
Yeah, I mean, as I think it's as big as a regular season game you could play in. But I mean, they're a great football team, and I always like going up against the best, and that's what we're going up against this week. And so we understand that it's gonna be a big game. We understand that it's gonna take our best to win. And so you just have to have extreme focus and know that it's gonna be one play that kind of decides the entire game.
You talked before about your interest in NFL history. Are you kind of aware of what this rivalry is, what its place in NFL history is now?
Yeah, in a sense, I think whenever you have two great football teams that meet up in the Super Bowl and meet up in all these big games, there's going to be a history between that. And so, obviously, we've been able to win those games, but we know how good this football team is, and we have a ton of respect for them. And so it's not like one play couldn't have changed all these football games. And so we're going with that mindset of we just got to make the plays whenever they count.
When you watch the last two drives of last year's game, offensive drives, what goes through your mind when you see those two drives?
I think the biggest thing that is the guys just stepped up and made plays. I mean, it wasn't one guy. It was everybody, and guys just continue to make plays and did their job, and that's what special football teams do. And it was this close. I mean, there's a play here and there that if that changes, then they win. And so that's kind of the NFL, and especially when you get two of the top teams going up against each other.
Patrick, recognizing that part of the bye week is to get away, was there something you still wanted to hone in on with your own game?
Yeah, I mean, I got some work in, and I feel like I'm in a good spot. But, I mean, until you take time off, you stay on top of your fundamentals. You stay on top of the stuff that's gotten you to where you are so far in the season. But I thought it was a good bye week. I spent some time with my family and some friends and family as well. And so did that and then got some work in fundamentally, and I'm excited for a great challenge ahead.
Just to follow up to that, what's your approach just for yourself and for your teammates, especially the younger guys, for the rest of the season as you guys kind of buckle in for this 12-game unbroken stretch to finish things out, at least in the regular season?
Yeah, you got to take it one game at a time, one day at a time. I haven't been in this situation before just because I've always had a later bye week. But I always try to stay on top of my body and making sure I'm healthy as possible. I mean, you're going to be banged up in the NFL. But you have to continue to just grind away every single day and get better. And then once you get to the playoffs, that's when you want to be playing your best football. And I think that's something that Coach Reid does a great job of, how he schedules practices, how he schedules the week to get your body best prepared for the entire season.
Patrick, speaking of that, go ahead, Keith.
What qualities make JuJu Smith-Schuster a good player for that role opposite Kelsey?
Yeah, I think he just does a good job of knowing where to be at, knowing the full concept of the offense, getting himself open in man-to-man coverage, and then just doing whatever it takes to be good. I mean, he'll block, he'll catch the ball, he'll run routes to get other guys open. Just a true team player. And then when his number gets called, he goes out there and makes the play, and that's what it takes to be great in this league.
Patrick, speaking of keeping your body right, what sort of stuff do you try to do with Bobby during the season, even the bye week in particular? What are you emphasizing right now?
Yeah, I mean, you stay on top of the little things, shoulder health, knee health, ankle health, all that different type of stuff, especially when you get a little bit extra time in the bye week. And then I try to do whatever I can to maintain my weight in the right spot. And then I even get with my QB coach and get some work in as well in that bye week. You just get a little extra time to focus on your fundamentals even more. And so doing that and then coming back in the building and continue to stay on top of that will be important to me this year.
Bobby in particular, what's his voice in your ear during the season, at this time of season? What are you getting from him?
His voice is in my ear at all times. No, it's he makes sure I stay on top of the little things. I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me throughout my career, and I've noticed a difference from my first few years to now that Bobby's up here working with me, is that he doesn't let the little things slide. And he knows some days I don't feel as good, and he makes sure that I get that work in, and I make sure to kind of check the boxes, and so that I can be the best I can be every single week.
Did you enjoy your trip over at Kauffman Stadium?
I did. It was awesome. It was, the energy was amazing. Obviously, the Royals played great against a great baseball team and didn't come out with the win. But it was cool to see and experience that. I've been waiting for that for a long time, and hopefully it's a building block and a step in the right direction for the future. And I'm excited for those guys in the seasons to come.
How awful was Dieter in the Sweet Week?
Yeah, he actually wasn't that bad. I probably was worse. I was the Dieter in that situation. He's a big Yankees fan, obviously, and he's super excited, and now he gets to talk trash to Travis. So I passed that along to Trav.
Keep up there with Travis.
No, dude, you can't give him a little slither of opening. And Travis told us that he was going to the game, and all of a sudden I looked and Dieter's flying to New York. So it's can't give him an opening, no. But it's cool for him to get to do it. I mean, I'm not like a Yankees hater, but sometimes I don't want the Yankees to win because of him. Like he's made me not want the Yankees, but I like the guys on the team. So I'm just watching as a fan now, which is cool.
Keeping with the baseball theme, what inspired you to get involved with the Negro Leagues and the collection there?
You know, it was cool because I didn't know Kansas City and the history of the Negro Leagues in Kansas City. And when I got here as a rookie in the rookie symposium type stuff, they took us over to the museum, and I realized how great it was, and met Bob and got to hear the history. And that was the same stuff my dad and LaTroy had talked about growing up. And my dad used to mimic Satchel Paige in some of the way he'd do his mechanics and pitch, and so it just hit me close because I had heard this stuff growing up, and now I got to hear the history of it. And so I know people talk about it, but if you haven't been, I would go over to the Negro Leagues Museum and see the history of the game and how it impacted not only baseball but the sports world in general. And so it was easy for me whenever Adidas came up to me and said, let's make something that goes with Kansas City. I was like the Negro League Museum and the Monarchs especially. And so I'm excited for how the shoe turned out, and hopefully you go out and get them.
Patrick, there's been a lot of buzz in the league the last couple of days, wide receivers. That being said, with JuJu, the game he had last Monday night, what's the confidence like, especially him tweeting out after the game, Unk still got it?
No, yeah, I mean, I have extreme confidence with the guys that are on that football field. I mean, they've won games, they've won Super Bowls, they've made plays in big moments, and Brett Veach does a great job of bringing players in that can step up whenever their number's called. And so every time I step on that football field, I feel like we have the best ability to win. And I think that's a credit to Brett Veach and Coach Reid bringing in guys that really get after it and put in the work to be great every single day.
Go to Nate next. Go to Nate.
How much time in the bye week, Patrick, did you look at your guys' performance in the red zone, and is there anything you want to change when you guys do get in that sort of condensed area of the field?
Yeah, I think it's just execution. I think for me, myself, I have to just trust to throw into some of those tighter windows and make those plays and know that window might be the only opportunity you have to score a touchdown. And then we have to be able to run the ball down there and know that we get different coverages than a lot of other teams. And so instead of necessarily going in with a certain mindset, because this is how this team is played in the red zone, we have to go in with more good versus all plays. I mean, if you look at some of these teams, it's like they play man all game, and then they play us. I mean, all season they play us, and it's cover 2 or cover 4, and vice versa. And so we have to go in with the mindset of knowing teams are going to play us a little differently, and we have to execute and accept that challenge. And I've talked about if we've scored in some of these red zone situations, there isn't as many, I guess, questions about the offense because we're scoring in more and more points. And so eliminating turnovers, scoring in the red zone are the two things that I think we just need to work on as the season goes on.
Just to follow up on that, the tight window thing, obviously you don't throw a lot of tight window throws. Did you see stuff going back through film, particularly in the red zone, that you say, hey, there was a small crease here that maybe I could have thrown it?
Yeah, I mean, in certain situations, yeah. I mean, I remember just from not even watching on tape, but just remember in the Atlanta game, I had one where I kind of went out to the left, and it wasn't necessarily the window to throw it, but I could have maybe back shouldered the corner route, and I didn't throw it that one instance, and then we didn't get another opportunity to score that drive. And so I was just knowing that, like, you got to pick and choose when you want to take those chances. I mean, obviously with our defense and how they're playing, you don't want to necessarily put the ball in harm's way in the red zone. But whenever you get those opportunities, you can throw a ball that might be him or nobody, and the guy can make a catch. And so stuff that I'll continue to work on as the season goes on.
Patrick, when a guy like JuJu comes back that you've worked with before, but it's been a while, how quickly, and what's the process of just getting familiar again and getting on the same page? That work?
Yeah, no, I mean, it always helps when you get in the game and it just kind of works out. I mean, obviously you get the reps in practice and you try to work through the things that I don't want to say lost, but you haven't worked on in the last year of him not being here. But then it seemed like when we got in the game, it kind of just clicked. And so that was something that was big for me. And we'll continue to get him involved in the offense as well as other guys. And I'm just excited for the guys that continue to get better and better each and every week. And I think we have the guys to do it.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick. Hey, Juju, just as far as getting back on the same page with Patrick and picking up the offense, what was the process like, and how valuable was that Saints game to just kind of diving in and getting immersed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an opportunity presented itself. I took the opportunity to work with Pat just throughout the week in my time here. And, like I said, I was very happy to be, in a game like that where I could participate to help the team out and win. Yeah.
What was the sole biggest challenge of coming back and getting acclimated into this offense?
Honestly, I think it's just the pace. The pace of this offense was, it's kind of go, ramping. Trying to get the playbook down. Very, very similar, very familiar with the playbook, but, there was some new stuff that I had to, get my head around and being able to keep up with this offense.
When you see guys moving from one team to another at the wide receiver position in the NFL, it seems like, oh, this guy can come in and make a big impact right away. What's the reality for most guys?
It's tough, man. I mean, you got a total different offense. You got to get the chemistry with the quarterback. You have to, just get acclimated with a lot of guys, in that offense room, because, you can have a great quarterback, great receiver, but at the same time, it does take time to build that over a period of time. Unfortunately, I had spent a year here in 22 to do that with Pat, and kind of helped me out.
When you were in New England, did you ever slip into, well, when I was with Pat, did you ever say anything like that, catch yourself?
No. When I was in New England, I pretty much, focused on my team and the quarterbacks that we had there and the OC and stuff.
Andy talked about just the importance of the role of the receiver playing off of Kelsey and the opposite end. What is it like as a receiver? You have a guy like him who's so impactful on the field. In my opinion, I think it's amazing. I think it's great. He's getting the double team. He's getting the ones, their best player to cover him. And that kind of leaves us open as a receiver group and other guys to get open, an opportunity like that. So with him, he's very smart player. So him know how to play in space, knowing when it's man, when it's zone, something that's pretty cool playing with him.
Being in the league so many years, what's the best way to attack a bye, and how did you spend yours this past week?
Honestly, just going back home. I was here till Thursday, hanging out at the house, trying to kind of still unpacking my stuff and just hanging out with my girl and my 2 dogs. And then the weekend, I was able to go back home to spend time for my mom and brother's birthday. So, family time is very huge to me, especially been playing my whole career on the East Coast. So every time I get a little bit of time, I go back home.
Juju, it's been 2 years, but last time you were in San Fran, you had a pretty good game. I think about 7 catches, 124 yards. 2 years later, things have changed, but what do you like going into this matchup against the Niners this time around?
It's great. You talk about a great defense, all around, from their secondary to the front of their line. I think it's just a competition. These 2 tight ends of the team has been going at it for quite some time now, and I think it'll be nice to get back out there, playing Cali again, and just go out there and have fun.
I gotta ask, you tweeted out after last Monday night, Unk still got it. What qualifies as Unk? When do you become Unk?
When I found out I'm like one of the oldest guys in the room. But that's funny because the young guys like Xavier always make fun of me like, man, Unk, man, I don't know if you still got it. Like, when the barbecue Unk, and I'm like, for myself, I think it's funny. But at the same time, it's pretty cool that, I can be a leader in that room.
Do you put pressure on yourself, especially given some of the injuries that we've seen earlier in that room, that more is going to be expected of you?
I think I always have pressure on myself, whether the guys who are playing or not. I feel like it's something I've always lived with is playing with pressure. Kind of makes me feel, like a better person, a better player. Always critiquing myself on how I can do better for the team. But I think it does help out, with, everyone in that room wanting to just do better for this team.
When did you become that? Was this the first time that you've been kind of Unk in the room? And
Yeah. I wasn't Unk in New England just because you had a couple guys that are older, around the same age, but a little bit older, and then coming here, to a room where you got a bunch of young guys, and it's pretty much just me and Jay Watt. But with me having the most experience in the room, kind of carry on.
What kind of wisdom are you imparting onto them as Unk?
Honestly, I think I always say like this place right here is so special. Don't take it for granted. And, playing here, you got to, make every opportunity count. And not only that, though, everyone in the room is so blessed to be here, but at the same time, they're also just so, like you said, putting pressure on themselves just to do good. You know, they just want to be their best version, you know, for this team. And, you know, for myself, what I could just advise to them is like, man, if you have a bad play, kind of just move on from it, next play, and then, you know, bounce back and don't let that play affect you throughout the whole game.
You're still only 27. Just how, as you look back, do you think starting so young in the NFL has kind of helped you in these days?
Helped me so much, man. You talk about, you know, being able to read defenses, being able to see coverages, being able to see so many different things that kind of pretty much helps you to the next standard, the next level, and being able to share that with the young guys is pretty cool because, you know, a lot of these guys, they know the coverages, but to be aware and to give little bit tips in here, hey, like, this defensive player is doing this person's doing this, and it pretty much helps out the team.
Nick? JuJu, despite what offense you've been in, when you're in a condensed spot like the red zone like that, what have been the keys as a receiver to kind of create some of those windows for a quarterback?
Honestly, just spacing, being able to get open in those tight areas in space, and, you know, playing here with Pat, that's something that you got to be able to do because he's like a magician out there when he's just running around in circles, doing half spins, and then just throwing the ball no look. So that's just something that in these tight spots of spaces, being able to get open, knowing where, you know, when you run your route, just knowing what everybody else has and kind of get that feel of where the spaces are.
Thanks, JuJu.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, guys.
and I'm glad everybody's here. Before I get going, I want to express my condolences to the Hall family on the passing of Don Hall Sr. He was a true Kansas City icon who did so much for the city. He leaves a tremendous legacy and will be greatly missed. For the Chiefs, it's been a great start to the season. Obviously, we're excited to be coming out of the bye week at 5-0. We've certainly experienced some adversity with the injuries that we've had, and want to compliment the guys who've come in and stepped up in those positions. I think it's a real credit to both Andy Reid and Brett Veach with the job that they've done of taking the next man up and putting him in a position to succeed. With that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Clark, I asked Andy this when Kareem first came back, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. When, as you recall, when that video came out a few years ago, the Chiefs moved quickly to release him. How do you reconcile that with bringing him back now?
Yeah, well, going back 6 years ago, we were obviously very disappointed by the actions that we saw in that video and how he handled it afterwards. As we talked about it as an organization here a few weeks ago, both Brett and Andy expressed to me that they felt confident that he had matured from that he had learned from the mistake, gotten the help that he had needed, and as a result, we felt comfortable in bringing him back.
Have you talked to him yet? When he was up here with us, he hadn't spoken to you yet. Have you spoken with him?
I have. I have. He expressed to me his gratitude for being back here. Yeah, he knows it's a really good fit for him from a career standpoint, knows that he left here under some difficult circumstances and is very glad to be back and getting to play for our great fans.
Quick question, as it relates to Tom Brady and his ownership that you all approved of. I know going to the finance, you all approved of unanimous management did it so yesterday. Was there ever any thought process to making sure, I mean, I know the NFL put restrictions on his broadcasting, but having to choose between one or the other, because it seems like it's going to help what he does for Fox, but it also seems somewhat unfair as a liberty and owner in the NFL calling games, especially division opponents and stuff.
Well, we certainly talked about the subject of him being an owner as well as a broadcaster, and the commissioner, after consulting with many owners, decided that the right step to take was to limit his participation in the production meetings, and that was enough to get everybody comfortable with the dual roles. So it did pass unanimously everybody yesterday, so I think everybody felt very comfortable with that.
Is there another quarterback you could envision one day being an owner in this league?
I'm sure he won't be the last.
Clark, you led the committee to allow private equity investment in teams. My understanding is that's not a route you guys are pursuing. Just wondered why is it not, particularly as you outlined stadium investment potentially being one of the benefits of that?
Yeah, well, every organization and the families who are involved are going to make their own decisions, and there are a lot of things that play into a decision to sell a stake in the team, whether you're selling it to private equity or selling it to another individual. And we've talked about it as a family, and everybody is very excited about the Chiefs and what we're doing on the field and the opportunities that we have in front of us, and we just don't feel it's the right time to sell a stake in the team.
So has any of the other ownership groups started down that road with that at this point yet? And I know there's certain limitations on what private equity companies can get involved in.
Yeah.
What's that process going to be?
Yeah, so it's a very compressed time frame with the league just approving it at the end of August and the paperwork literally being finalized over the last several weeks. My understanding is that there are several teams that are pursuing transactions. One or two of those might close before year end, but I would expect that there'll be many others that will close next year and in the years to come.
Clark, what are your latest thoughts, or what can you share about the timeline of your decision-making on the stadium situation?
So for the last 3 months or so, since I had a chance to visit with y'all at training camp, we've been working on creating some options, not only for the stadium, but also for potentially a new training facility. We've been looking at a lot of sites on both the Kansas and Missouri sides, as well as talking to the political leaders in Missouri about perhaps renovating Arrowhead again. We're not at the end of that process at all. We continue to have good conversations, and we're hopeful that by the spring we'll have some direction. I certainly don't expect to have anything finalized by that point, but I'd like to know, the direction that we're headed in that time frame.
I know you guys had outlined a timeline, not a deadline in training camp, that potentially the end of the year is saying that it's more likely to be a little bit later than that.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what I said at training camp, which is it's very hard to put a timeline on a stadium process. And so we want to move as quickly as we can. The real deadline that we have is in February of 2031 when our lease runs out here at GEHA Field at Arrowhead. And there's a lot of work that will need to go into either renovating the stadium or building a new one. So we do feel like we need to work as expeditiously as possible.
Clark, I know some of it's self-evident, but I wonder what the 3-4 things you might point to would be that are what takes so long to make this process thorough and get where you want to get.
Probably the most difficult thing is there are a lot of stakeholders when you're involved in a stadium process. You've got the local city, the county, the state that all have to be part of those conversations. Obviously, there's a lot of work on our side in terms of figuring out what the right opportunity is for us economically. We also are very cognizant of making sure that we keep the community and our fans in mind. We want to make sure that where we end up will work for many generations of Chiefs fans.
Darren?
Clark, obviously, I believe Arrowhead is going to be used as a polling location in a few weeks, but on the political side, Harrison Butker has created a PAC. Are you fine with your players being involved politically as they are like that?
One of the things I talk to the players about every year at training camp is using their platform to make a difference. Obviously, we have players on both sides of the political spectrum, on both sides of whichever controversial issue you want to bring up. And so I'm not at all concerned when our players use their platform to try to make a difference for what they believe in.
Clark, back to the stadium, the state of Kansas, they did the work with the Star Bonds, and that deadline is going to be July 1 or whatever. What do you need to have happen in the state of Missouri through all the levels, city, county, whatever? There's not going to be anything on the ballot this November. Do you anticipate, I guess, that if something gets done in Missouri, it won't be a valid issue at this point? It's going to have to be another vehicle to get that done?
I think there are a lot of avenues that we could pursue with Missouri on financing for a renovation of GHA Field at Arrowhead. The effort that failed earlier this year had a couple of stakeholders, with the state being part of it, as well as the county. And the city historically has also had a small involvement with the stadium. So I would anticipate that it would be a combination of all three of those. Certainly something that has slowed us down a little bit is the election coming up here in 3 weeks. We're going to have a change in the governor of the state. And so once we get past that, we think that'll really open up the opportunity for us to have more constructive conversations.
From the outside looking in, it looks, I know there's complicated parts to this, it looks like Kansas did a whole bunch of work for this, and it looks easier to maybe go do that. Is it not easier just to take that? Is it worth something more, work harder on this side of the state line?
Well, we're not looking for what's easiest. We're looking for the right opportunity. And we're grateful for the work that was done on the Kansas side that opens that up as an opportunity.
We'll go last to Nick and then Nate. Go ahead, Nick. Clark, for you, from talking to Andy in the airport in Philadelphia 11 years ago to where you are now, do you feel like you guys have been able to build everything that you envisioned culture-wise when you were talking to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument that we've maybe exceeded my expectations. Certainly I envisioned building a team that could consistently compete for championships, and obviously Andy and Brett and their coaching staff and football operations team have done an unbelievable job of that. But you mentioned the culture, and I think that's one of the things that's so special about this team is the culture. Andy Reid gets a lot of credit for having established that culture, but we wouldn't have what we have both on the field and off without the players and the player leadership specifically. Patrick, Travis, Chris Jones, those veteran players do a tremendous job of helping perpetuate the culture that Andy established when he came here 11 plus years ago.
Nate?
Clark, you mentioned the possibility of obviously different locations on both sides. Can you share what some of those locations might be on each side of the border, and I guess how important is it that the stadium and the practice facility be sort of tied together instead of maybe, I know Mark had said at some point one might be in one location and the stadium might be in another.
Yeah, it wouldn't be helpful to the process for me to mention specific sites other than obviously, here at the Truman Sports Complex, which is an obvious one. In regards to your second question, the practice facility and the stadium don't have to be next to each other going forward. And on the Missouri side, that's something that we're contemplating is perhaps another location in Missouri for a training facility.
Could they both be in the same state though, or can you vision one in one and one in the other?
I think really everything's on the table in that regard. There's some logic to having them in the same state, but I don't think they have to be.
Can you build a bigger interview room than this?
We're going to build a lot of things that are bigger, for sure.
Thank you, Clark.
All right, thanks. Yeah.